young Noah Wyle was looking forward to a big screen acting career before embodying medical student John Carter.
I had just started working with a manager, and before I had an opportunity to tell her that I wasn't interested in doing any television, she sent me the pilot script for ER. So when I got it, I thought it was a feature film script. I didn't realize it was a TV pilot, so I read it and immediately fell in love with the character of Dr. John Carter. And I liked the arc of the character, that his first day on the job was the pilot. So I went for the audition.
He was a very young actor at the time, and he wanted to do film and theater. And as a casting director, I meet a lot of young actors who want to do film and theater until the right part comes along. And that's what happened in this case. He knew that this was a part that he needed to do.
During the casting process, producers were expecting another actor to win over the role of Dr. Carter.
Noah Wyle came in and was not actually our first choice at the beginning for the part. He was very young and kind of green.
Noah credits Michael Crichton for helping him get through his final audition for NBC.
I really do credit him in particular with getting me the job, because when I went for my final audition to the network, I was testing against another actor, a very good actor named Raphael Sabarge. And they had us together in a holding room, and Raphael, to center himself, was doing some Tai Chi. And I thought, oh, he's going to be relaxed and he's going to be all zenned out in the job. And Michael Crichton walks in the room, and he walks over to me and he says, I was just reading about this woman who lived in Tibet about 400 years ago. She was a potter. And the amazing thing about her work, nobody knows whether it was something that was indigenous to the clay in the region where she lived, or if it was something that she did in particular with the kiln process. But her pots were virtually indestructible, and many of them are still in practical use today. And then he turned and he walked away. And I remember thinking, what the f? And then I went, oh, what a great gift. Like, he walked into a room, he saw one actor centering himself, he saw another one freaking out. He thought, I'm gonna take this kid out of his head. And I was relaxed, I walked in and literally walked out with the job.
Noah did the scene where he was drawing blood for the first time. And he tied a rubber band around my arm and used a pencil to pantomime putting in the needle to take blood. And of course, the whole idea was that he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And he turned it into one of the funniest auditions I've ever seen.
We fell in love with him. He earned that role absolutely in casting.
The other actor was also very good, but Noah had a feeling of Dr. John Carter, that he would be this youthful, energetic young doctor who wanted to learn everything.
Coming up next,
When we shot it, she was dead as a doornail.
we'll reveal how Juliana Margulies survived the pilot episode,
She was too good to kill, obviously.
when the story behind ER returns. Welcome back to the story behind ER. As production began on the medical drama's pilot, the role of Dr. Peter Benton was still not cast.
That part was the last part cast. It wasn't cast until we had begun shooting.
We'd seen a number of very good actors read for Eric's role, and they were good, but not spectacular.
Michael Beach was a leading candidate. Michael Beach is a wonderful actor.
But we just didn't feel he was Dr. Benton, and we didn't have anybody else. And the show was starting production. We were trying so hard to find the right actor. I was in my office one day watching a pilot we had shot about 2 years ago, looking for another actor that I was thinking of for another project, and Eric LaSalle, who had co-starred in that pilot's face came up. And I said to my associate, make sure they've seen Eric LaSalle for Dr. Benton. They had not seen him, and they brought him in right away.
Eric came in, and he was in the hallway outside of my office in blue scrubs, and he was doing yoga on the floor. And I called him to come in, and he brought the intensity of that character, and he brought this wonderful thing of like, I don't give a damn if you like me or not. I'm doing my job, and I'm doing it well.
He comes in scrubs. He amps it up. He believes that the character has to have this energy, this articulation, this strength of character. He's fast, he's strong, he doesn't really listen to the other side. He's driving his dialogue, and he blew us away.
Eric LaSalle was just like this, playing this cold-hearted doctor, but he was like a softie, you know, right in the middle.
And he came in the day before we were going to shoot and auditioned, and we hired him. And he went down to the set with this huge, you know, monologue to do of medical material with like 10 hours to learn it.
ER finally had its 5 leads cast, but that quickly changed to 6 once guest actress Juliana Margulies turned her one-episode appearance as Nurse Hathaway into a long-lasting role.
Juliana Margulies came in and was just cast for a smaller part in the pilot that died at the end, and she actually did die at the end of the pilot. When we shot it, she was dead as a doornail.
We knew Juliana had been in our show Homicide, and they wanted her as Carol Hathaway, which was a guest star role. And then, of course, she was so wonderful in it and brought so much to the show that everybody wanted her to stay.
There was this wonderful chemistry between George and Juliana, and then she was very talented, and so the scenes that were meant to be kind of throwaway scenes, you couldn't kind of take your eyes off of her.
We decided that Homicide was going to be renewed, that would come back. And the producers liked her a lot, and they wanted to offer her a role. Then when we looked at the ER pilot and saw that really interesting relationship that Juliana had with George Clooney, she was quite a presence. So now I had a problem. I had 2 shows that both were going to be on the fall schedule, Homicide and ER, and they both wanted Juliana Margulies.
Juliana chose to stay with ER, and the pilot was reworked so Nurse Hathaway could survive.
I think everybody fell in love with Juliana immediately and her character, and it was great that they were able to, of course, not kill her off. She was too good to kill, obviously.
With casting complete, the pilot of ER was underway.
We had a blast on set on the pilot when we shot the pilot, and it was just because it was so quick and so exciting.
I had the biggest learning curve, so I thought, this is going to be the most fun.
The pilot was crazy to get everybody together. Sets are coming together. I remember being incredibly lost in the pilot. We were on these hospital sets, and you would go in one room and come out another.
The great, thing that Michael had written in the script, which I thought was a great thing, was Dr. Green lays down to go to sleep in a small back kind of holding room or closet. And the second he closes his eyes, the door opens, and 4 hours have passed, and the shadow of the nurse comes in and says, "You're on call again."
6:30, Dr. Green.
Wow.
The pacing, the shooting was different than anything we've ever seen.
George Clooney's character, comes into the show drunk out of his mind and put in his own medical room to sleep it off.
Give me a fast trip. I need the hydration.
Don't worry, Doug, just lie back.
When I saw the pilot for the first time, we all were like,
The best pilot I've ever seen, to this day. The best drama pilot I have ever seen.
It was just exciting. It was sort of like being in a constant fire drill for, 2.5 weeks, and then it was over.
When we return,
He said, we don't have any notes because it's never going to go on the air, and I don't want to waste your guys' time.
find out why this groundbreaking medical drama almost didn't make air.
It just went against everything they believed.
When the story behind ER continues. Behind ER. After a last-minute green light, the pilot episode was complete, but the finished product received a mixed reaction from NBC executives.
We were on the 3rd floor of NBC's conference room in Burbank. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was sitting back in my chair holding my chest because this show was coming at me in a way that I'd never experienced anything before. And then my boss, Don Ohlmeyer, was just pissed off when he was watching the pilot.
He felt that they did not take our notes on the pilot and that they did not know how to do a television show. And his thought was, we'll never use feature people again. They don't know how to do television. They don't respect television. And it's just not right for us.
And Laurie Openden, our head of casting, in that moment where the lights came up after the screening, Laurie said, "I love it."
Some people were just quiet and stunned, others were angry. And I had the good sense to speak up and say, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I can't believe I was in the same room with all of you. And I have gotten a lot of pleasure out of having said that statement.
She broke the tension in the room.
Then Warren Littlefield came out and said, we don't have any notes because it's never going to go on the air and I don't want to waste your guys' time. So we said, well, what happened? And he said, there's just a lot of controversy about it. There are people who like it, there are people who really dislike it, and we don't think it's going to make it through the system.
It just went against everything they believed to be true, which is they didn't believe that audiences would follow that many characters, that many different storylines, and that it would be confusing for them.
The second I was told, by John that some of the guys didn't like the pilot, I just said, great, let's buy it back and we'll take it to CBS. We'll take it to ABC. There's other buyers in town.
I really thought we had delivered the greatest pilot in the history of television. So I said, they're nuts. This is the best pilot I have ever seen.
I was absolutely determined, as was John Wells and my whole television group, that this was going to get on the air somewhere.
The pilot was then tested with an audience.
We brought in a group of people, and we sat there and we watched the test, and the test scores went extremely high.
I spent 20 years at NBC. You don't get strong in a test result all that often. The research results were powerful. And the screening of the finished product, the room, 60 some odd people now, the room was really impressed.
The reaction to the finished version of the pilot was enough to convince NBC executives to place the drama in the network's most coveted time slot.
Before we branded the night Must-See TV, we called it a night of bests. The best television on television, Thursday night on NBC.
Before officially joining NBC's Thursday night lineup, the pilot episode was premiered on a Monday night.
We premiered the 2-hour pilot on a Monday night, not on Thursday, because finance said, you can't afford to take 2 hours away from Thursday. We'll lose too much money.
And it did very well. And there was some feeling like, well, that's good, but it really starts on Thursday.
Thursday night at 10 o'clock. That was a real feather in our cap. That was the time slot on NBC. That was the Hill Street Blues time slot. That was the LA Law time slot. Getting that was huge for us because it was a sort of a stamp of credibility.
That same night, ER would go up against another new medical show based in Chicago.
ER beat Chicago Hope badly that first night, and it sort of beat it the entire run of the show.
It got the ratings. We were like, wow, this killed Chicago Hope, and we were just kind of dumbfounded because we didn't expect it to be so big, just so captivating.
It just happened overnight. The show hit the ground running. All of a sudden we were off to the races and there was no holding the show back.
It was just that perfect storm. It's so rare when all elements come together and the creation is great.
It became the #1 show in the country fairly quickly. It really became a national phenomenon.
At one point, 40 million Americans watched ER on Thursday night.
ER was groundbreaking television.
The pressure of feeling like going from something that you thought you were just doing for 2 hours and it was going to go away to being in this prestige slot and then having the show be successful was a great feeling.